Yo, Shortbox Nation, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in today, man. I just want to say I am deeply appreciative of the folks that make Wednesdays a routine thing, like that press play on Wednesday mornings. They're like, all right, let's see what the short box is up to. Let's see what type of bullshit Botter's got for me this week. I really appreciate that. That is something about podcasting that I think goes underappreciated sometimes as a creator and a host, is that you have built this rapport with people that some you know, some you don't know, some you haven't met yet, and they give you the time of day. There's so many different distractions out in the world. I was reading an article about some of the things that comic books is dealing with in today's day and age, and a big obstacle is like the attention span. There's all these things fighting for your attention. And when you're thinking about like today's youth, they've got the best fucking video games in the world. They've got millions of movies at the that they can easily access, movies, shows. I mean, don't even get me started on like YouTube content, social media. So I just wanted to give a big shout outs to all the Shortbox Nation peeps that tune in on a regular weekly basis. I appreciate it. If you're new, well, welcome to the show. You'll be among those same people here shortly after. Right, I'm welcoming you guys to the flock. My name is Botter, and this is the Shortbox Podcast, the comic book talk show that brings you the best conversations about comic books with the people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making them. And those conversations also extend to the people who put their blood, sweat, and tears and all of their free time thinking about them, championing them, and talking about them to whoever will listen. This is episode 436, and today I am joined by the co-host of one of the best comic book podcasts out there, talking about the Oblivion Bar podcast. I've got returning guest and good friend Chris Hacker on the pod. What up, Chris?
Hello.
Oh, no. Very loud. You know what? No, you deserve that. You deserve all that.
They're too happy I'm here. That's what happens every time I show up here on the Shortbox, which is often, everybody. If this is your first time listening to the Shortbox, I am here at least every other week, so I'm happy to be here. And as a weekly listener of the Shortbox, I will tell you, and Botter, I told you this in our secret group chat with Greg Lichtag of the First Issue Club.
It's not really a secret anymore since we bring it up every time we ever record.
We bring it up literally every time we are together on the show, but I will say that
kept secret in all of comics.
It's our secret little comic group chat. My girlfriend even knows about the comic gen, so I'll tell you, it's not that secret, obviously. Yeah. But I brought up in the chat that I really love these freeform episodes that you've been doing, specifically with Drew, who is always like it's always fun to have him on, because as I've told you before, and Drew, I hope you're listening to this, and I may have even told you this at was it New York last year, that Aaron, my co-host on the Oblivion Bar, and Drew are copacetic. They are kindred spirits, these two. They bring this sort of chaotic but special sauce to each of our shows, whereas you and I, who I think are pretty fun people overall, need some kind of levity in our very deliberate and organized and structured formats.
Well said. And it never, I guess it completely blew me away by how accurate that depiction is, and how similar like Drew is to Aaron and myself to you. Like it was like uncanny, like just how similar you guys are. It's like, okay, so this is Botter and Drew, but Midwest, the Midwest version of them. And in good point, I've been thoroughly enjoying recording with Drew on a more regular basis. It makes me feel like I don't even remember how old we were, but it makes me feel like 2012, 2013 era, just recording the pod, just to have something to do with Drew and Walt, and whatever topics came to mind, and we were okay with tangents. And it's a lot of fun because, to your point, like Drew provides a lot of brevity. He's like a box of, not to I guess bring a Gump quote to this. He's like a box of chocolate, because you really don't know what you're gonna get or what he's gonna say. Some of it is very like coherent and like, wow, that was a really smart perspective. Other times it's like, what the hell are you trying to say? Because I think you might get us canceled. But I couldn't imagine
the same exact way.
It's like, oh, that's right. Your filter broke when you were 5 years old. That's right. Whatever comes to mind, leaves your mouth very fast. But I love recording with them. And Blythe, my fiance, she does a very successful podcast solo, and she's always kind of, she's my champion. She hypes me up, and she always tells me that you should try to record more solo episodes. She's like, I think people would enjoy that, but I don't think I would have as much fun. Like, I need someone to bounce things off, and Drew is he's a great sponge. He's like my therapist at times, and he makes me laugh. So, I guess all these things can probably be applicable for you and Aaron.
100%. Yeah. Aaron is the special sauce of the Oblivion Bar. We always say the Oblivion Bar has my looks, but his personality. So a lot of times the chaotic energy is something that is required. Again, I like to, when I sort of talk about organizing the Oblivion Bar and what I want to bring to the listener, I want it to be entertaining and informative. And I think to speak on your point of doing podcasts alone, I have done podcasts alone on the Oblivion Bar, both in interviews and special episodes. And I hate it because I need someone to bounce off of. I need that. Yeah. I've always actually said that I would love for the Oblivion Bar, even though I love Aaron and I's dynamic of this being our baby, the Oblivion Bar is us. I always thought like 3 hosts is the perfect amount of hosts in a podcast. I don't know what that would ever look like in the sense of the Oblivion Bar, but I still think that dynamic of having 3 different voices is like the best. But all that to be said, Aaron, to speak on what you're saying with Drew, he is someone that often loses track of the point. He is off topic. He often doesn't do the proper research. He doesn't say the right thing. I'm often like giving him one of these looks. People that are watching the YouTube episode, I'm like, dude, come on, like end it so I can say the thing that I want to say. But at the same time, he brings in that hilarity. He will, like you said, brings in like a certain perspective that I've never thought of somehow, because he's much older than I am. Not much older. He's like 6 years older than I am, but he's older. And I would never, ever, ever want to do the Oblivion Bar without him. If tomorrow he said, even though the Oblivion Bar, I think a lot of people that are listening to this or that listen to the show, Botter, I know you know this for a fact, that I am like 98.9% of the Oblivion Bar podcast in terms of like behind the scenes, in front of the mic, all the stuff. Yeah. But if he said tomorrow, I'm done with the Oblivion Bar, I don't want to do it anymore, the Oblivion Bar would end. I do not want to do without him.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful thing to have like friends that you get to share this experience and this journey with. Mm-hmm. I guess not to get too meta off the rip in the intro. Back to the listeners. So obviously I've got Chris Hacker here with me, and we don't have a particular singular topic that we're covering today. I haven't had a chance to talk with Chris on the pod for a couple of weeks. I mean, obviously we text pretty regularly, but we haven't had like
daily.
A long form. Hourly. We haven't had a long form conversation, and a lot I feel like has kind of transpired in the past couple of weeks. I'm just curious to catch up with you on. So
sure.
I want to hear, you were lucky enough to go to San Diego Comic-Con this year. I want to hear how that went. Mm-hmm. The Olympics, I'm gonna make this work. Don't worry.
USA.
Exactly. The Olympics, we're actually recording today. The closing ceremony actually happened, but they're going to be doing the primetime broadcast here in a sec. So that's kind of top of mind for me. And I've got a fun game to play centered around the Olympics with comics. I want to hear about some of the comic books that you've picked up. I think you have been, you've shared a couple of images about your recent comic pickups, some books you've bought. We can talk about that. And last but not least, I was going to leave this as just a free form, casual convo, catching up with a friend. I think this would make for great content. But I reached out to Ben Kingsbury, the owner of Gotham City Limit. Fantastic, premier, amazing comic shop here in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm 99% sure all the listeners know who Ben is at this point. But Ben, I reached out to him to have him send in a couple of his comic book picks. So these are books that are coming out next month in September that he feels pretty strongly about that people should check out. So these are great entry points for new readers, maybe something a little interesting for longtime readers, regular Wednesday warriors. And Ben has just got such a great perspective and view on comics. So we'll hear from Ben later on in this episode. But that, I think, is for the most part what we'll be covering this episode. So if that sounds of any interest to you, if you guys are interested in a more free-form, casual combo, it'll be a good one. If you want some interviews, well, I've been dropping a ton of interviews. Actually, last week's interview was a short box classic. I put together a couple of these interviews I did of Game of Thrones actors from 2019. So that was a lot of fun. I got to talk to the Night King, for starters. I got to talk to a Night Watch member. So check that out. And is there anything else I want to say? Oh, I guess I should use this opportunity really quick. So if we brought up my recordings with Drew, if you are someone that's been listening to the podcast for a while and you miss hearing Drew more regular, or you're just looking for more extra episodes. The weekly episodes come out every Wednesday. I try to do a good job of dropping something every Wednesday, whether that be a short box classic, a Patreon preview, or one of these regular episodes. I've got a whole lot more on the patreon.com/the short box. It's also the best way that you can support what I got going on here. Chris will tell you, podcasting is not cheap, and to do a good podcast, like I firmly believe this one is also not cheap, or and it's just timely too. It requires a lot of time and effort, and any support we can get from our listeners, it's a nice motivator. I mean, obviously we use it to cover hosting bills and equipment and etc., but it's also a nice motivator to know that people enjoy what you got going on and don't mind chipping in a few things. I am actually going to be taking a page out of Chris's book, because Chris treats his Patreon subscribers and patrons really well, and I'm going to be sending out a care package. So I'm going to be sending out like some comics, some stickers. I got a couple of other cool things. I've been going through my collection lately, Chris. You know this, and I have found so many like just cool little promo items, little like with special edition cards that came with a comic. So I've got a ton of those, and I think I'm going to try to pack something interesting in every package that I can. But at least you'll get a comic and a sticker if you're a Patreon subscriber, just as a thank you for the many months of support and just, being our number one fans here at the Short Box. So that's what I got to say. Chris, how are things going on at the Oblivion Bar? You had your latest episode is with a damn near S tier, not even A-list, but like a S tier comic book creator. I also know he's someone that's been on your bucket list. I won't ruin the surprise. How are things going at Oblivion Bar?
Yeah, things are going great. I want to briefly just take a quick step back to what you're saying about the Patreon and sort of the packages and all that stuff. I would say the only thing better than reading comics is sharing those said comics. And that's part of the reason why we sent out those care packages, because I think I tried to include one special thing that not only I loved, but I thought a lot of our patrons would love. So for instance, for you, I sent you the first volume of Saga of Swamp Thing from Alan Moore and Steve Bissette. And I absolutely adore that run. I think it's 50 issues total. I'm actually looking down here. I have the collected editions. I have the omnibus. I have the original OGNs. I have the hardcovers. I have it in so many different formats. I have the single issues. I sold my entire collection in 2016. Mm-hmm. And the only two runs that I kept was Dennis O'Neill's Question Run and Alan Moore's Saga of Swamp Thing. I have those two entire runs still. Everything else is sort of sporadic here and there, nice. Convention buys, impulse buys, variant buys, all the things that I still get into these days. But I don't collect single issues as much. I'm a dirty trade waiter, and I'm proud of it. All right, I'm not afraid to admit it. But all that to be said, with the Oblivion Bar, as Boddard mentioned, we're actually on a little bit of a hiatus currently. It's our first hiatus in almost 5 years, which is insane to think about. We have been going strong since April of 2020. And as some people may or may not know, not to trauma dump live here on the Short Box, but I'm currently going through chemotherapy for colon cancer. It's going really well. Whatever was there is gone officially, but I wanted to sort of step away for a moment, take care of that, get that out of the way, and move on with it. Aaron is also in the process of he's already in process out of the Army after a successful and valiant 20-year career in the Army. So now he's trying to figure out what to do next. And if he was here right now, he would tell you that he doesn't know. And we want to use
this
fine,
time. I mean, he's been what, you said 20 years in the Army?
20 years. He got in at 17 years old.
Oh, I mean, damn, when you put it that way, it's like, yeah, I think it's completely fine that he doesn't know what he wants to do. I mean, this is something that he's been doing since he was a fucking teenager, and he's dedicated his whole, at this point, his whole life to. I'm sure whatever he gets into next will probably be something altruistic, because that is the type of guy that Aaron is in. He definitely is someone that wants to make an impact and, do good in the world.
Absolutely. And, the benefit of his, again, incredible service to the country is that he gets that sweet pension, baby. He gets that
God,
check
don't even get me started.
Every month.
Cheddar cheese.
Not to mention Yeah, that's right. He doesn't have to get like a job like you and I. He could get whatever. Like he could really do a passion job and
I
still get
know,
that
man.
Uncle Sam check each month. So, which
The
I'm
world
proud
is
of
his
him, and
oyster. Yeah.
I'm so proud of him, and I'm excited for him to figure that out. And of course, like you said, that's tough, but I have no doubt that he will. So, along with that, part of the reason, I would say the main reason why we've taken a break from the podcast, it's only 2 months. We're coming back in October, guys. It's not really that long, but I will say that when we come back, and Botter, I've already shared all of this with you. You know for a fact what's going on. We have a couple things. We have a couple knobs turning in the background. A couple cool things we're sort of recalibrating, and I'll say in a very offhanded way, rebranding. And it's exciting. It's something that Botter, you and I, we're again kindred spirits. We sort of think of our shows in a very similar way. And when I don't think of the big wins. I think of the small losses a lot of the time with the Oblivion
Yeah.
Bar. And one of the things that has been a constant small loss for us, I think we've corrected in a very major way. So I'm very excited to start to tease that going into September and then eventually reveal at the beginning of October. And I will say that we've already sort of announced when we're coming back, which is October 17th. But it's going to be exciting. It's going to be very exciting to showcase what we've been working on since before we stopped and then during that stoppage.
Damn right. Chris is one of the hardest working podcast hosts in the game. So when he says all of these secret messages and indecipherable comments that he's actually putting in the work and thought into it. Which man, that is something that the more that as I'm hosting like these Jack's podcast or meetups and doing the work I do with the podcast community here in Northeast Florida, and trying to like empower podcasters, especially newbies that like are a little bit like maybe hesitant about diving in, that have questions, that are like finding their way. I said something at our last meetup where I was telling the group that showed it, we did a meetup. There was like 60 people easily. And I was just like letting them know, like, don't ever discount the amount of work that you put into your show. And I think, Chris, you are a great example of someone that that really puts their time and thought into it to make a quality show. But also you're thinking about like the bigger things too, because you could easily just think about, oh, I'm just going to press record and whatever happens and that'll be the episode. But you do a great job of doing outlines and putting thought into your episodes, but also thinking of like the bigger things, like how to move it along and really grow it and brand it correctly. And so I think that's what makes you, in my eyes, a highly respectable and admirable podcast creator.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's something that like I want for other podcasters too. Like you said, like anytime someone comes to me and says, I want to start a podcast, which is often in 2024, it is one of those things where I say it is sort of a daunting beginning, but once you find your footing and you sort of find that pillar, that pillar of I don't know what the correct term would be. Sort of find what your message is in your show. It's fun. It's really rewarding. Nothing is more rewarding than putting out an episode every Monday on the Oblivion Bar, which will sort of channel me back to what you had mentioned there a moment ago with our most recent guest, which is a total testament to the work that we put into the Oblivion Bar and would never have happened had I not, made certain connections and all those things. But like once you put that out on that, for me Monday, for you Wednesday, and whenever, it is so rewarding. Unfortunately, I think you are a similar Botter, is that I never relish in that victories. I always am like, okay, cool, that's done. Let's move on.
Man, I was thinking, okay, so obviously, this is the spirit of today's episode. We're just sharing our thoughts and feelings. We're gonna get to all the goody comic book nerdy parts here soon. But I was reading today, so I went to the beach today, and I decided to bring David Harper's sketched zine. For those unaware, David Harper is the guy who runs. And Chris, if you're watching the video version, which we're going to be sharing a lot of visual things, if you want to watch on YouTube, I got a couple of the comics we'll be talking about here. Chris has already shared a couple of things on the screen, but David Harper, he is the guy who runs the incredible comic book website Sketched, and he runs the weekly comic book interview podcast called Off Panel. He's been a guest on my show, on Chris's show. He does amazing work. Everything we're talking
Top of the
about,
mountain, everybody.
Yeah. And David put out a sketched zine last year, and it was like, it had like an article from the website. He had transcribed this interview of Kieran Gillian in this zine as well. and Kieran Gillian, and hopefully I'm saying that right. Is that how you say his last name?
I
Kieran
say
Gillian?
Gillen, but truthfully, I am like the worst pronouncer.
Well,
See, I
there's
just
two
wrote
of
it.
us.
I cannot pronounce shit, and they always say like pronunciation is like half confidence. I lack that confidence when it comes
All
to
right. Well,
pronunciation.
I'm gonna be very confident in saying Kieran Gillen, but
Sure.
one, I thought the idea was cool that he made a zine because I've always wanted to make a zine. And Duval Comic Zine Fest has been growing in size every year. Local convention here in Jacksonville, Florida. It just celebrated its third year. I'm lucky enough to be involved as a panelist, and I get to host the event. And I feel like making a zine might be the most achievable thing I could do. I've always wanted to do like a creative endeavor, and I think a zine is like accessible for someone like me, where I've got no artistic talent. I can't really draw, but I have an eye for design. I feel like I've got pretty good taste, and I know I've
We're
always
both in
wanted to.
marketing, so it's one of
Yeah,
those things.
exactly.
Yeah.
So and
Jack Kirby famously said, "I'm not artistic. I'm creative." That's both of you and I think.
bars. Okay,
Yeah.
so uh, but I was reading David's zine, and I was like, man, this is a great idea to take one of my like favorite interviews, transcribe it into like print or for print, and maybe make a zine, maybe like make a short box best of zine, like my top 5 favorite interviews and written format, and maybe hire like an artist to do so. It's like something I've got in the back burner. But Kieran Gillen was talking about like taking breaks, and he doesn't necessarily just like cold quit turkey being, he doesn't stop being creative. He just shifts his focus to something else. So instead of writing like, I think he was the interview in particular was being done at the tail end of his Judgment Day, his X-Men Judgment Day storyline. And he was saying like he takes on some of these like big projects because there's a deadline at the end, or there's an end in sight. So he hustles, he puts in the work. It's like a hurdle, a relay race, and then he's able to like, he knows there's an end in sight, and then he'll like shift gears, and he'll like maybe work on like a premise for an RPG game, a tabletop game, or write a TV show script, or like he dabbles in other things to flex like his other creative muscles, but they all relate back to what he does with writing and writing comics and things like that. So thinking about you taking a break, putting the Oblivion Bar on pause to like deal with some life stuff, and also like recharge and maybe approach it from a different angle, and then reading like David's interview with Kieran, it got me thinking like I might just take the rest of August off, or a clean break in September, so I can, I don't know, like come up with something different, like I love doing the pod, but I do feel like I'm kind of repeating myself, it's like interview, maybe a little, I think I might do more casual ones that don't require a lot of prep, and I can just kind of express things and talk about certain topics, but I don't know, I'm feeling like the need for a nice recharge.
Yeah, it's funny about us creative folks is that we get into ruts where we're constantly just churning out ideas and projects, and we find we find small victories. Again, as I said earlier, we find value in a lot of that, but the moment you make us stop, and that's where I'm at currently, you come up with a lot of incredible ideas.
Damn,
And
that's what I want. That's what I
yeah,
want. Because
and
then
that and
you're not. I'm sorry, no, but it's
you're good.
not. I feel like I have a list of ideas. I keep like a separate notepad of like ideas that are related to short box and segments, and like cool topic ideas. But I'm so focused on the weekly grind. It's like, okay, I got to get this week's episode up. I gotta clip it to promote it, and I don't have the spare time to like make the other ideas pop off, or just like see, even if they don't go anywhere, like to really see like how they work fleshed out.
Yeah, and again, I feel like we've built the hype up so much for this, but I'm going to reveal it right now. In the
Yeah, please,
conversation,
here
that
we
my
go.
most recent interview was with Brian K. Vaughan, writer of Saga, Pride of Baghdad, Paper Girls, a couple
Huge
seasons of
get.
Lost, a lot of things, right? And he mentions, like, we would specifically talk about it for about 10 minutes about how him and Fiona, Fiona Staples, his artist and co-creator on Saga, they purposefully take these deliberate pauses from Saga to keep the band together, because that's what's most important. And I think he finds a lot of value in that. I was already planning this stoppage with the Oblivion Bar, the sort of hiatus, but when he said that, I was like, God, it makes so much sense to me. He totally he rationalized it in my head right there in that moment as he said it. And I am so for folks taking a break from their passion, their love, like that. The Oblivion Bar is that for me. I think the short box is that for you. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves as creative people to continue we're always told, like, if you take a break, if you don't constantly put things out, you're going to lose eyeballs, you're going to lose ear holes, you're going to lose that attention of your listenership. I don't find that to really be true anymore. And not to mention, you and I don't have like these, not to say that we don't enjoy our listeners and we don't appreciate the listeners that we have. We don't have these like millions of listeners that we're going to lose 100,000 people that hop off when we take a month break. That's not the case at all. I think if nothing else, we have a very tight knit, a very supportive listeners and followers that understand that we need that break, especially for moments like, of course, what I'm going through, but also even if it is just like, let me take a moment to recharge my batteries. Right.
Yeah, and I guess maybe this speaks back to maybe I just need to have faith that my listeners will probably fill that void with maybe something. And maybe they're like maybe the listeners are even thinking like it would be nice to take a break from Body so I can go catch up
Listen,
on Bear season 3. You know,
they can't miss you if you don't leave. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But big ups to you about on getting Brian K. Vaughan. I know that is one of your favorite writers. I know that must have been a huge moment. I listened to the interview. One of your best for sure. I thought the questions were well thought out. Brian K. Vaughan is also, I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Very smart, very charming, really grounded too. Really, I liked his perspectives about bringing in like his experience as a parent and bringing that into Saga. I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
Did you? I'm sorry. Did you? What did you leave that interview? Like, what perspective did you leave that interview with? Any new perspective, any new knowledge or tidbit that maybe makes you appreciate his writing more, or maybe just appreciate Saga in a different light?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think something that I felt like I already knew, but he says very deliberately in the conversation. I asked him at one point, I'm like, for people who have read Saga, I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody that hasn't, but there's a very huge thing that happens in issue 54 of Saga. And I know, Botter, he knows what I'm talking about, and maybe people listening right now do as well. But I asked him, I was like, what was the chatter like between you and Fiona on the eve of that event, the Wednesday that issue 54 came out? Were you nervous? Were you apprehensive? Was there any doubt in your mind? And he was like, I love our readers. I love our fans. They get our tattoos. They get tattoos of our characters on them. They invite us to their wedding, but I can't think about them. This is, like what we do with Saga is for the betterment of the story, and to think of them would be to diminish
Hmm.
the story in a large way. And I feel like I kind of already knew that, because there's one thing that I know about Brian, and I respect it so much as not only a creative person, but as a comic book fan, that when you read his work, whether that be Ex Machina or Saga or Spectators, that his story over on his Substack with Nico Henderson, he does not hold anything back. He is, if more than anything else, he is more in your face about certain topics, and is so unabashed in his approach and his plot lines that I know for me personally, and Botter, you may have felt this at some points, in your creative venture, that like, if I put this out to people, if I put this out into the ether of the internet, into space and time in the universe, and people don't like this or they react poorly to this, I will never recover from this.
Hmm.
And Brian K. Vaughan, to me, and I guess me now in a certain stretch, has never given off that idea. Like, he's never given me that apprehension. And I respect that so much, that he is willing to just show his underbelly to his readership. And it has always been for the betterment of the story. And it's also made people like myself and a lot of other folks in the world giant fans of his. Because as you said earlier, he was a part of a bucket list of like him, James Gunn, Chris Evans, Jim Lee. There's these creators, people in my nerd world, that if I ever got them on the Oblivion Bar, I will die happily one day. And Brian K. Vaughan was the tippy top of that list. He always was there. And somehow he was the first one I got of that crew. I don't know if any of those ever happened. Any of those conversations ever happened.
Yeah.
Probably not. But Brian K. Vaughan, if you had asked me 4 years ago, and if you had asked me yesterday, who's the number one person you want to have on the Oblivion Bar at some point, it would have been Brian K. Vaughan.
Well said. I think for me, Jonathan Hickman is that to me, where I really respect that he is confident in his storytelling, and he's kind of unwavering. He looks like someone that doesn't listen to the audience in the best way possible. Like he's not on. I know actually he's not, because I had a chance to host a panel with him, and he said that he's not on social media. I mean, I don't think he is. Period. I don't think he's got a Twitter. I don't think he's on Instagram. I think he's just communicates via his Substacks. But I appreciate that solitude and like that focus on telling your story and the one you want, and kind of throwing caution to the wind in terms of like, will this please the audience? Will they get it? And I guess for me, I guess he's one of my White Buffalo interviews. Now,
Mhm.
like I said, I already had a chance to do a panel or host a panel with him and Scotty Young. So that kind of scratched the itch. But, it's like, I could do a whole Hickman interview, focus interview easy. There's
Yeah.
so many questions I want to ask him. So I'm
Hickman
glad
scares
anyway.
me. Hickman
He
scares me.
does. Yeah,
I
yeah.
I
Because
don't
I'm
I don't
like,
think I want to have him on the show. He is way too smart for me. I'd be like, so east of
yeah,
west, it's like Civil War, but guys. And he's
yeah.
like, well, let me go on this 40-minute monologue
Yeah,
about why
he's like,
you're
"No, you
wrong. And
idiot. It's actually about, Christianity and capitalism, right?"
yeah,
And you're like, "Damn it, I knew
God
I should
damn
have
it.
said capitalism."
I should have said the universe. Damn it.
All right, Chris, I want to move on to our next topic. Fun little game. All right, adding a little brevity here.
Mhm.
We I guess I could speak for you because you're wearing a USA shirt, so I think it's safe to say you've probably been on the Olympic hype train.
Yeah.
Have you been watching a lot of the games? Have you been watching like the primetime stuff that comes on at 8?
Truthfully, I keep up sort of passively. Of course, I keep up with USA basketball. I think
Mhm.
that's the one that I've been most interested in. But I did watch the 4x400 of both the men and the women last night. Obviously, I
Oh
watched
yeah.
the championship game between USA basketball and France, and then I like sort of keep up here and there through podcasts and just sporting apps and
Yeah.
all the things. But to speak on what you just said a moment ago with my T-shirt, I don't know if you can see here. This is the USA number 9. This is Tyrese Halliburton, who played a total of like 3 minutes for USA basketball this entire Olympics. But hey, still a gold medalist.
Damn right. That's all that matters at the end of the day. Okay. Well, I mentioned this on the bonus episode with Drew this week, but I have been obsessed with the Olympics. I think this is safe to say the first year where I have consciously and rabidly been like seeking out the Olympics. Like I'm watching as many of the games in the morning, in between meetings. I work from home, or I'm definitely making sure to catch like the primetime broadcast at night. Speaking of which, I think we've got right after we finish this, I'm going to go watch the closing ceremony.
Mhm.
YouTube TV, I can watch it anytime, but so I've been really into the Olympics this year. It's something about watching the absolute best in the world compete. The over, the just the incredible emotion. That is shared from these athletes after the races or after the games, whether that be like pure bliss exuberance or the complete opposite where it's like heartbreak and just like this anger. It's been absolutely incredible to watch the Olympics. I think it's also made me feel real patriotic, even more patriotic. You're like watching.
Are there specific events that you've
Oh
really
my god.
loved?
So I would say I think I was talking to Blythe about this. It's hard for me to pick a favorite because I kind of went in like, let me just watch everything. Anything that's on, let me watch. But I think
Mhm.
I've really gravitated towards track and field. I
Mm.
did not know I'd be this invested in like watching Gabby Thomas, Sydney McLaughlin. Love saying that name. Sydney McLaughlin LeBron, Shakari Richardson. And then watching like gymnastics, I'm like, I was watching all of them. Jordan Childs, Suni Lee, Simone Biles. It's
Of course.
it's been
Yeah.
like amazing, like the women this year, and I think Blythe told me a stat that that women have won 60% of the medals. I don't know if that's gold or overall medals, but they've won a lot of awards this year. So it's
Yeah.
been awesome to watch like some badass women just like absolutely represent for USA and win at their game. I was also watching swimming every night. Ledecky is absolutely mind blowing. The men's swimming has been great too.
But if you
I was
talk to
watching
Michael
like
Phelps, he's like disappointed in the swimming team. He's like, we need to be
yeah,
dominating.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
like, dude, well, yeah, we know that you got like 9 medals
yeah.
in one year,
Please chill.
but we
Yeah,
get it.
I forget the name of the French kid that was winning all the gold medals. But something. Even though USA all day over here, but it was something about seeing, and I wish I could recall his name, but he's French, and to watch him win in his home country and like the roar of the stadium. Anyways, I'm going on too long. Olympics have been great this year. Cannot wait for 2028. But I've been watching the Olympics as I'm organizing like my comics. I think I might have shared on the main feed that I have been absolutely just focused and obsessed with organizing my books lately. And it's all because
Yeah.
our good friend, Greg Lichtag of the First Issue Club, who couldn't be here today because he had a bad gas station burrito and it fucked him all his plumbing up.
Those gas station churros will get you every time. Just
Yeah,
collace. That's all they do.
Yeah. Keep his colon in your thoughts and prayers.
That's right.
But Greg put me onto the CLZ comic app. So he brought me into, the fold of circa 2015 or whatever that.
So surprising to me that you've never heard of CLZ. I was using this in like 2014.
I have heard of it. I guess I just never cared because I guess I never saw myself like, I was like, there's no way I'm going to organize all my books and go through every issue. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Fuck that. I've got way better things to do, like the podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm a sucker for a barcode scanner, and that was Greg's selling point, was that the CLZ app has a great barcode scanner. So I have been like cataloged. I counted today, I think I have 9 or 10 short boxes that I pulled from my storage unit, lugged them in my little Subaru Crosstrek, brought them all here. I don't have enough room in my studio, so my room has literally been like filled with comics. And I've gone through every single box, scan them, catalog them. There's a couple issues that aren't in their library, but I've had the Olympics on in the back, and it got me thinking, like, what would an Olympics for comic collectors look like? I know it wouldn't be as, it would just, it wouldn't be some extremely physical thing, but there are some
have to be
things
a specimen to do it.
Yeah.
I want to quickly go back before you continue on. I just want to say, you're talking about the track and field. Why is every single female track star also a model? Dude, why is that a thing? Firstly,
I swear to God, if fucking the modeling contracts have to be ready for people like Sydney, McLaughlin or Gabby Tom. I mean, come on, man. It's like, there's your next Wonder Woman right here.
Right,
like these women could really actually be from Themyscira.
Yeah, they're just like 6'2", 180 pounds soaking wet, but can run a less than 10-second 1,000 or 100 meters, excuse me. But also I was going to say about Simone Biles, who's one of our greatest Olympians and one of our most decorated U.S. participants, is just a walking thigh. Like, she's just muscle. She's just. I feel like if I would have been punched her, it would break my knuckle easily.
You would break before she flinched.
Exactly.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
All right, but anyways, it got me thinking about, man, if I could make a comic book an Olympics for comic collectors, what would that look like? Think of all the physical things because owning a comic collection is physical, and you don't realize how physical it is until you have to move, or you're trying to organize your books and you're fucking bending and picking up boxes and flipping through books and things like that. So this was a topic.
Short box is that's a good amount of weight.
I would say, how much do you think a short box weighs? I would
50
say
pounds, maybe.
50 pounds is. You know what? I can go with 50 pounds.
Yeah.
So I brought this topic up to Drew when we recorded our bonus episode, and we came up with like a couple of games, like what would be in the comic book Olympic Games. And I'll share a few with you, and I want to hear what else you would add to that. If you want to hear the full list, listeners, go check out this week's bonus episode with Drew. So 2 that came to mind that I thought were pretty good was one that is based on the long jump. Imagine like a long jump, a long box long jump, where you stack long boxes end to end, and you compete based on how far you could jump over a number of long boxes. I think I've got I think I could jump over 3 long boxes. I think I got that in me.
Yeah. So are we talking like lined up from front to back or side to side? Okay, gotcha. Okay,
front to back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, get the maximum length.
We're about this. I mean, you're taller than I am, but I feel like we have the similar body style. I think I would probably do about 3 myself. I think I
got a silver medal. I got a silver medal in me for sure.
Yeah. I might even do a little bit less than you. I do like 2.5, maybe. I'd probably fail. I'd hit failure at 3.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I feel like I'm being too modest. I might have to, but we're on a comic podcast. I'm using my imagination.
You're a modest guy, everyone says about you. He's a humble motherfucker, this guy.
I think I could definitely get a silver. I'd be able to win the silver easy with the long box. And I think, there'll be the long box long jump and then a short box short jump. And I think I definitely can clear like a solid 8 short boxes.
I think I would be like the Maria Sharapova, to make a tennis reference for some reason. I'd be like the Maria Sharapova of the comic long box jumping, because I would only clear like 1.5, 2, but you would see those slow motion, like you'd see like me and my spandex and just all the motion happening in my muscular body. And there'd be like TikTok you know, thirst traps all over, just all over the place. That'd be me. My
One
hair
can
flowing in
drink.
the wind.
Yeah, that's funny. What about all right? What about a what do they call the pole vault? Not the pole vault. Oh, actually, a pole vault would be pretty cool. A
Yeah,
pole vault, or what's the one where you're jumping over the bar
high
itself
jump.
and you high jump?
Yeah,
Okay, I think you can also apply long boxes and short boxes to either one of those.
yeah, yep.
And imagine trying to clear like 10 stacked short boxes.
Yeah, that would be tough. I actually have a very. I have to show you this sometime. This is not at any point. This does not matter to the show. I have a really disgusting scar on my inner thigh, my inner right thigh, because
From
I
trying to
did
do long box jump?
no. I'm trying to do a high jump, and I scraped myself with a spike one time. But
Oh
uh,
my God.
I do like that though. I think that's really cool. Could I give you one really quick?
Yeah, please, jump
off
in
the
there.
top when you were talking about this, it made me think this is sort of sacrilegious to the idea of being a comic fan. But what about like CGC disc throwing? CGC like
Oh my
slab
God.
throwing. See how
That'd
far
be
you could like
great.
disc that thing out, right?
Yeah, and then extra points if you could, if it lands and it breaks and frees the comic book. Now
That's
you got a
right.
raw. If you can
That's
get it
raw.
from slab to raw, gold medal.
Yeah.
All
Then you
day,
have to
easy.
if you regrade it, it's a higher grade. You get an extra medal.
On CGC they got like the banners and the special markings.
Yeah.
Like it's just an Olympic medal for it being, to indicate it was used in the comic book Olympics. Okay, what's another one that me and Drew thought of? Okay, I was watching a couple of like strongman competitions. The what is it? The bent over rows? Is that what they call those? But imagine, and it's based on something I had to do. I live in an apartment where I have precisely 18 steps. I have stairs, 18 steps. I know this because every time I'm coming home from the gym after leg day, it's the most painful experience.
It
And
is
I've
hell.
counted them every single time. But it got me and I had to lug a couple of short boxes up and down these stairs. And at some point, like we all do, I got a little cocky. I was like, I'm not going to do 8 back-to-back trips. I'm going to try to save a couple of trips. So I was able to stack 2 full short boxes and walk up these stairs pretty well. And it got me thinking, like, this could be an Olympic comic book game
Oh yeah.
too.
Oh
Is
yeah.
short box stacking. How many do
Yeah.
you think you got in you, Chris?
I could probably. So here's the thing. Here's a little backstory on.
I think
Chris
I could
here.
do it. I think I could do another. I think I could do a solid 3. I might be able to push it to 4, but not by much.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say 3, and here's why I say 3, because for almost 10 years of my life, I was in the bar industry. I was a bartender specifically, and I would often have to refurbish the beer cooler, right? I had to bring up cases of beer. And I think those beer cases would often, I'm going to say glass beer here. I would say they would roughly weigh about 45 to 50 pounds. So about the same weight as a short box. And my secret talent, and this is not like strength. I think it's all like, I don't know, form, I guess you would say. I could carry 3 sometimes. If I got cocky, I would try to carry 3. I could carry 2 comfortably. It would be strenuous, of course, but it's like not hard. But 3, if I was feeling cocky and I was feeling cocky and lazy, I would try to carry 3. And it was like, it would be higher than my head. So I'd have to just like
Same.
hope and pray that I'm not walking over something or I trip. I've never dropped a case of beer in my life, but yeah, I think I could maybe do 3, 4 if I'm like, if you gave me like a smelling salt or something.
I will admit,
or if one of the track and field girls were watching us do the event, probably I would try to do 4.
If Sydney McLaughlin was watching me lift some short boxes, I'd go for 10.
Yeah,
I'd go for absolutely 10. Okay. And then another one that comes to mind is this. Drew came up with this one, but flipping through a short box could also be an Olympic, sport because it's like about speed, dexterity, I think,
Finger
as
strength.
well. Finger strength, right? I think the rules we were thinking of, you have an entire short box filled. So about 90 to 100 comic books. I think 90 to 100 if it's like they're all bagged and boarded. I think you get a little more than 100 if they're not bagged and boarded. But imagine like having a full short box in front of you, and you have to flip through every single issue. And to add a little bit of complexity and difficulty, you also have to like lift the book up to pass the title banner. And imagine trying to break the record of that.
Can I offer
8 seconds flat?
Like, can I offer like an alternate event to this here? I think it would be cool if you had like 5 long boxes and you had to pull out 10 issues of a series. So you have to flip through all of those books and you have to find those 10 issues while flipping. and then the timer ends when you get those 10 issues.
Okay, a little hide and seek.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I told Drew the one game I probably would never. You couldn't pay me to play is organizing
Oh
a
my
long
God,
box. Like
no.
imagine a randomly assorted long box that you have to sort in record time. I just oh man, my assorting game only makes sense in my head. If I was to bring you over and show you my short boxes, you'd be like, "What
What's the method here?
universe?" Yeah, like this is clearly not ABCD. This is
Yeah.
AZF DC Marvel, whatever it is. Chris, how do you got your comics organized? Do you do it by publisher, by creative team, or is it a special blend in your head?
Well, we talked about it earlier about how I don't really have a ton of single issues.
Same. And I think that's what makes like organizing those issues a little more interesting because I had to come up with some creative ways myself.
I have 5 short boxes, and the way I have it sort of organized right now is I have there are certain creators, cover artists specifically, that I will buy a lot of. For instance, Daniel Warren Johnson. I buy a lot of Christian Ward. At one point I was a giant Donny Cates collector. I'm not proud to admit that, but I did that. That's part of me. I have like certain creators that I will always. Jen Bartel, another cover artist that I will often get. Rose Besh, Peach Momoko, and I have tabs for those. Then I have CGC/con issues that I know at some point in my life I want to take those and get those eventually graded and pressed and maybe slabbed, what have you. And then I have this giant miscellaneous collection of just, there's literally no method to this madness. It is just, I picked it up on a whim. Old issue of House of the Secrets, sure. Most recent variant for Demon Days, okay, fine. Like it's that kind of crazy. So that's kind of my organization. When it comes to my trades, these are all in order by hero. So I will often do hero A through Z, and then I will try to organize the trade by oldest run to newest run. Okay. And then obviously this is not comics, but for books, I do Dewey Decimal. So I do by author. So.
Oh, wow. A little Dewey Decimal system.
Yeah.
Your elementary school teacher or librarian would be very proud of you.
That's right.
I was able to, here's some of my boxes I've got. I've got a completely Marvel box, a completely DC box, Image box, and then I have an indie box. So this one has like Boom, Dark Horse, IDW, and then like some other smaller publishers. So I was able to get that into a short box. But my 2 favorite boxes I have are these boxes that I've just labeled personal. And these are books that to no one else would they have any value or significance to. But for me, it's like an ash can, a comic book that a friend made, a comic book that might have been given to me. Like I've got a couple of the ones that you've like your Phantom Road Oblivion Bar variant cover is in there. I've got like all of my Gotham City Limit, exclusive variants in there. Ash cans also fit perfectly in a regular sized bag and board. That's my little like collector, tip is, I try to put everything in a bag and board, and I find that ash cans fit really well in there. But then I've got like my Marvel hip hop variant collection in there. I've got, like these are books that I would sooner grab these, and they probably have less monetary value than say like the Marvel box or DC box. But these are the ones that I can't replicate. I can't like duplicate or find them out in the wild. CLZ doesn't even have them listed. There's not a cover price value to them. So do you have like your knock on wood, this never happens, but house is on fire, I've grabbed family and friends, loved ones out of the house, I need to go in and grab one box? Do you have like your safe box?
Truthfully, I don't know if I do in terms of single issues. The only comic, if my house is on fire, I would grab my dog Toby. I would probably grab my Alex Maleev Dr. Doom that's sitting right next to me. And then the only comic that I would grab, which is over here in my case, I have a case, like one of those, like, I guess, display cases you would see at a comic shop. A lot of times they put statues and such in. It's mostly all graded books of both Silver Surfer and Dr. Doom. And the only one that I would grab would be my Fantastic Four annual number 2, signed by Stan Lee, that I got signed at Cincinnati Comic-Con in 2016. So that would be that'd be the only single issue that I would grab.
Wait,
in a heat.
Did you get it signed by Stan Lee himself?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. How was that experience?
This is a whole nother episode we could do, but this was in 2016. So a lot of folks who are in the know that Stan, towards the end of his life, was being terribly taken advantage of.
Misabused, yeah.
And for me, luckily, I did witness him sign it himself, but there have been stories of people like taking his hand and literally making the signature, which is so fucking gross.
Oh
But
man.
for me, that was a really cool experience. Truthfully, my entire moment of meeting Stanley is sort of blacked out and lost into the ether of time. But I do remember being very excited about it and thanking him whenever I met him, and he was really nice. Stan was a total stand-up, really fun, energetic guy, even at the age of 90, not even 96, I think, is when he eventually. It was a year before he passed in 2017. So, yeah, it was a cool experience, and I have that signed by him, that annual #2, which is for all the CGC heads out there. It is a 5.0. I have not had it pressed or anything, so I'd be curious. Maybe some point in my life, maybe I'll get it pressed and see what that does to it. And then also part of the event that I went to offered a Humberto Ramos cover he did for Amazing Spider-Man during Dan Slott's run that is also signed by Stan Lee. So, yeah,
Oh, those are solid picks, man. Mine are
yeah.
like, I think I've got like the first comic book my dad ever gave me. It was a Fantastic Four 162. And when I tell you, if I was to go get this graded by CG, they'd send it right back. They'd be
This is
like,
not even a
"We
point
don't,
five.
yeah, we don't do negatives, sir."
Yeah.
Um, which I know that is a very, it's not an expensive book. I've actually own a way better version of it because I just wanted like a nicer one,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't want to lose that one in a fire. And actually, the more I think about it, I don't know if I have an exact thing. There's a lot of things in here I would love to keep, but I think I actually one thing I'd probably grab is behind my left shoulder, I guess camera right,
Mm-hmm.
is the original artwork for the short box gauntlet logo that Ed did, and he gave
Mm-hmm.
it to me like years ago. He was one day he was like, "Hey, I just remembered I have the original art piece for the logo. Here, you can have it." So I think that shit like that, like a lot of my collection, I could easily kind of like find, maybe not easily, but I could find them. I was told that my hip hop variant covers are going for a lot. I got the
Yeah.
The Miles Morales one, which is the homage to Nas Illmatic. Apparently, that one alone is $200 up. So, yeah, I wish Greg was here because I would probably talk a little more about like, how fun it's been like cataloging my books and getting an understanding. I think as a collector, I have always been. I always feel icky thinking about like my books from a monetary value and thinking about comics in that light because I think there's a lot of I think I think that angle or that side of comics has been like the big thing on YouTube. Like a lot of like big comic channels focus on that aspect. And I've always felt like, there's a lot of really good people doing it. And then other times I'm like, some people get into this for the wrong reason.
Mm.
But I think the middle ground that I found is that I'm spending a lot of money on these books. Comics are not cheap. And I think it would be foolish not to at least have an idea of what it's worth, like have respecting that side of comics where because comics to me has always been like the amalgam of art and commerce, a very interesting business structure that is comic books. So it's like I've always just appreciated them for the creative angle, the stories, the art. But then I think I'm now learning to appreciate it more from like, okay, some of these things hold value. There's a whole market to it. This is a culture in itself. So CLZ app has been fantastic where I can put all of these books back in the storage unit for safekeepings, but I know what's in them, right? Like I can actually kind of look at my collection, and that's been fun.
Yeah. To speak of what you're saying there, I've always wavered myself on this idea of like, what books do I collect, right? Like I go to a lot of cons. I work for comic sketch art, so I have access to a lot of like con exclusives that people will like they'll create an entire schedule around getting this one book signed by this one creator. And I could just walk up to the person and that's not beyond me how lucky I am to have that opportunity. But like, it is one of those things where when I think about what I've been collecting, and I think this might even be a good transition to one of our
Yeah.
points about like what we've been collecting recently. Uh, I, so I've never bought a book with the anticipation that I will at some point sell it in the near future. That's not
Mm-hmm.
to say that I haven't sold books. I've sold plenty of books for a lot of money. For instance, like I said this on Twitter the other day, and it's the comic that I regret selling more than any other comic I've ever owned. which is Fantastic Four number 48, first appearance of Galactus and Silver Surfer. I had it at a 7.0 on CGC. I bought it for $700 in 2014. I sold it in 2017 to fund a move to St. Louis in 2017. And it was almost instantly worth 3 times that because that was when Disney bought Fox, and I sold it for $700. So I sold it for the same amount that I bought it for. But it was not only was it heartbreaking, because anyone who knows me, Botter, you know this quite well. I love Silver Surfer. It's my favorite character in the world. It's my favorite comic book character overall. And to have that at one point and then to sell it within 2 years of owning it, it was such a kick in the nuts just on face value. But then to see how much it was worth almost immediately after I sold it was such a true gut punch. But to say all that, I've sold comics here and there, and a lot of times it's for a good reason, but I always collect on the basis that it's something that I want to keep forever. And it's a lot of times it's not ever for a resale value in any sense.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, I guess I'm just learning to. I don't know. Maybe I guess I am looking to make room for more. Like now that I've kind of got an idea of what's in my collection, I can avoid double dipping in certain instances. But now I'm kind of excited to have some challenges where I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm going to be collecting for the rest of my life. Like, let's try to complete a run. Let's see about like hunting down like characters that mean something to me. Kind of building. Now that I know what's in my collection, I know what I can trim. Some of the fat I can trim, and I want to just have a very concise collection. And I feel like it's pretty concise. If you looked at my collection now, you'd be like, this is definitely Botter's collection. There's a lot of hip hop involved in here. There's a lot of Street Fighter. It's very favorite writers kind of driven. Favorite artists kind of driven. So I think it's just been fun, like being reintroduced to my collection. So big shout outs to Greg in the CLZ app. If I might actually try to reach out for someone and have them on from the CLZ app.
I want to briefly say as well, I feel like it's sort of a subconscious distancing that I try to do when it comes to people who, because like you said, it's commerce and art joint at the hip. This medium is the comics, and the creators, at cons, they know this very, very well. Like there was a time that you could walk up to Jack Kirby and get a free sketch. Nowadays, if you want to get a commission from the aforementioned Rose Besh, that's going to cost you a couple grand, because they know how much this is worth. They know that some neckbeard is going to buy this commission and flip it online if they charge nothing. And that's interesting for one thing, but also we shouldn't be embarrassed to seek out things that are valuable, right? Like I know a big get for me at San Diego Comic-Con, and we'll talk about it here in a bit, I'm sure, was the Absolute Batman Ashcan by the upcoming,
lucky man.
in the fall. I got it signed by Nick Dragata and Scott Snyder, and that was exciting for me, right? I did the same thing at San Diego last year for Transformers #1 with that Ashcan. Like this is fun. And of course they're worth something, but like we shouldn't waver from that, or we shouldn't, I try not to look down on people who view comics as a business, right? Because it is, and just because they don't love superhero, just because they don't love the Fantastic Four as much as I do, doesn't make them any less of a fan in their own way. It's something that I've sort of come around on, and I know that I'll never be that person that goes to cons and just buys a bunch of exclusives and sells them online, which was an Olympic event that I was going to offer. It would be con variant exclusive resale speed. How quickly can you sell that variant online?
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I like that one a lot.
But I'm not ever going to be that guy. But I'm not saying that someone who is not. They're not less of a fan than I am.
I guess I'm also. I know there is a forthcoming move in my life where your boy's getting married in October, and buying a house is in the very near future. So I'm trying to get well ahead of things and not be caught by surprise like I was moving from my apartment and having to lug my entire collection. I guess I'm trying to think of like, you own these books. These books are your responsibility, whether, they mean something to you or they've got, resale value, whatever. I do have to figure out how I'm going to maneuver with them. So having an idea of like what's worth something, where I can recoup some money, I feel like it's all part of like this ecosystem, and I'm trying to embrace it and not feel icky about, the commerce side of comics. But it is a it's a collectible hobby. So I think it comes with it.
Yeah, and I'll say sort of my last thing on this whole thing is, comics have been since its inception a buyer's market. very rarely will you be able to sell a book more than you bought it for. Very rarely.
I am facing that. I am experiencing that big time. Facebook Marketplace is a very humbling experience when it comes to selling comic books.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Can I share a quick story about that?
Yeah,
because
please.
you know, when I sold my collection, I sold it for a annoying, miserable amount compared to what I paid for it, and I thought it was worth way more. But it's the same way with original art. And Botter, you know this. A lot of folks listening to this, I'm sure, probably go out and want to get commissions. And I'm a big collector of original art. It's one of my favorite things to do at cons. I actually, shameless brag, I recently got my Stan Sakai Usagi Yojimbo from San Diego Comic-Con framed. I'm looking at it right now, and it's one of my most prized original pieces now. But one of my other big ventures at San Diego was to try to get a Darwin Cook original.
Oh, wow.
And
that'd be crazy.
People don't know Darwin Cook. Darwin Cook passed away a couple years ago, and he's already, I mean, he was a legend when he was alive. So imagine trying to find an original piece from him now. And I went to, I would say, the biggest art collector. He's widely known as the biggest art collector. Albert Molina, I think is his name. He is the art collector for, or he is the art dealers for Jim Lee, Bruce Timm, the big guys, right? Like if it's a big person that you and I could not put our bank accounts together and buy a piece of, he is the dealer for that person. And I found a couple pieces from Darwin Cook in his booth, and I'm like, hey, listen, I have some original pieces, because he has like promoted all over his booth. I accept trades. I'm willing to barter, but let's talk, right? And I was like, I have a couple pieces. I show him my Alex Maleev Dr. Doom. I show him my Christian Ward Dr. Doom. I have a bunch of originals, and he was like, I'm not interested in any of this.
Damn.
I don't want. I have a Scotty Young Miles Morales over here. I have a Ryan Stegman Swamp Thing. I have a Daniel Warren Johnson Trunks commission on the wall right now.
Oh my God, I want to see that.
I have a Dan Hip, President Loki right above me.
Wait. Is this all stuff you've got or he's got?
I have. This is all of my original art. He didn't want any of it because he's like, if it's not a published piece by a legend, I will not take it. I'm like,
and those weren't legendary enough.
Clearly not.
Damn, that's crazy.
I don't know how an oil painting of Dr. Doom in today, like this is San Diego Comic-Con. Robert Downey Jr. just announced that he was Dr. Doom not even 4 hours earlier. And he's like, I don't want this piece of shit. Why are you bringing this up to my booth? That is like big.
Damn.
I got humbled.
Yeah.
It was a very demoralizing experience for me because I'm like, I could easily trade my Darwin Cook. I'm sorry, I could trade my my Maleev Doom, which I don't want to do, by the way. Like it's as I said earlier, it's very.
But off the principle, you're like, I'll show you, buddy.
Right.
I can at least get
like, would you
4 digits.
I showed him. I was like, would you be willing to even like look at this? And he goes, no, I can't take it. It's a commission. I don't want it. It had to be a page. It had to be a cover.
Dude, that's what that is what I love about comic book culture. There is all of these, pockets, that you could just live in and be a fan in. And I think original art is a space that I'm very interested in. I follow Jimmy Palmiotti on Twitter, and he shares a lot. I guess he started collecting original comic art like fairly early, and he talks about the pieces he's owned. We're talking like Bernie Wrightson pieces, Bill Sienkiewicz pieces, a lot of like famous 90s comic artists. He's owned like a lot of pieces, and he sold them like, throughout the years to fund a house, to, fund this. And I don't know, the stories he shares, you're like, man, it's kind of cool that he's able to like use, not only does he work in comics, and not only does he revere like, these people as his peers and friends, and also as a fan, but, comics has like quite literally like funded his life in a lot of different ways. And but I guess I'm looking to get into, like, dip my toe in, and I'm sure like there are levels to that, like you just mentioned. But yeah, owning an original art piece, I guess I don't make the distinction right now between, I don't care if it's a commission or an original published piece, like as long as that shit looks amazing.
That was me for a long time, but apparently that's not good enough for a Darwin Cook. Albert had this Darwin Cook Wonder Woman that looked exactly out of New Frontier. It was probably I would say a 4x8 a piece, and it was an orange and black. I don't even know how he did this, but it was incredible. He wanted $6,000 for it, and I was like, wow.
And those price tags are just a different beast, a different level.
Yep.
Which I think makes for a good segue into another topic. unique pickups and significant purchases that we've both made. I think I've got some cool books that I picked up in the last couple of weeks that I wouldn't mind sharing. I know, Chris, you have picked up a couple of cool key issues and books that you've been hunting for. So
I
I
have a
figured,
problem, everybody. I need
why
help.
not talk about these? How about I'm gonna go first just because we brought up commission pieces,
Sure.
and I think this first one is a great example of that. So I guess if you're an audio listener, this is where it gets a little visual show and telly, but I'll do my best to describe this as much as possible. If you're watching on YouTube, then you've got the front row seats. So first and foremost, I finally got my Maria Wolf sketch
Nice.
cover. Do you call it a sketch cover commission, or what do you call it? A sketch cover?
Yeah, I'd say sketch cover. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got her to do a cyborg Akuma on a blank variant of Void Rivals #1, which I picked up Heroes Con 2023. And it was not only my first time meeting Maria, but it was also, I think, the same week that Void Rivals #1 came out, and everyone was talking about, the big Transformers surprise at the end. But she absolutely killed it. I had to wait, obviously, about a year and a half for this, but well worth the wait. She is an extremely busy woman now. Her name is, all of her stuff is on fire. But
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of sketch commissions, and I think this might have given me the bug to kind of go all out, maybe get a couple of more. I have as I'm going through my collection, I think I've got like 3 or 4 other pretty cool blank covers, like a Daredevil one, a Transformers blank cover that I would love to get a Daniel Warren Johnson piece. But I feel like a sketch cover is probably me dipping my toes into buying like original art, because they're nowhere near as expensive. I think it's also cool to watch artists be able to play with like the masthead and see if they're going to do a wraparound cover and see like what their vision looks like. So extremely happy about this Maria the Wolf sketch cover.
Yeah,
Chris,
Maria,
what about you?
well, as I say, if you've never met Maria, if you don't know what she looks like, she is this 4'7" firecracker. She will talk and talk and talk. She is so talented, but I think she has the gift of gab, if I can say that.
Damn right. No,
Yeah.
that she does. Excellent.
She's awesome.
Conversationalist.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to go one for one?
Sure. I'm just going to group up San Diego Comic-Con all into one here. So I got 3 main pieces of original art at San Diego Comic-Con. Number 1 was the Stan Sakai Usagi Yojimbo that I mentioned earlier. I finally own an original Stan Sakai. That is a bucket list original piece of art that I've always wanted, and I finally bit the bullet. Had a little extra cash, and I was like, this is the con to do it. I was going to buy a cover from a up-and-coming creator named Kreese Lee. Are you familiar with Kreese Lee at all? Okay. He is awesome. He's done a lot of Iron Fist here recently. He's done a lot of covers, but he is so great. And I was talking to him at his booth. I had this on hold. This is sort of a bad deal for me. I had it on hold for almost 2 years because I really wanted it, because it's for a series called She Said Destroy, which is a vault series by Joe Carroll and Liana Kangas. Now, the reason why I wanted this cover is because obviously I love Kreese, but it's issue 2, which I am actually in that issue. I'm a background character in that comic. So I really wanted that cover, and I told Kreese that I would buy it from him at some point, just put it on hold for me. And I was on my way over to talk to him. I get to his booth, and he's sitting there sketching away, and we're sitting there chatting. We're talking about all the stuff, not only with comics, but eventually he mentioned that he heard that I was going through cancer and all that, and we were chatting. And at the end, I was like, well, anyway, I got to get back to work. I'm going to go ahead and buy this. And he goes, no, just take it. I'm like, and to speak on this, everybody, if you're not familiar, and this is not beyond me how lucky I am, but when it comes to original art, a published cover is the tippity top of the threshold of what an expensive piece of original art is, because not only is it published, but it's a cover. So to have Kreese Lee, who is, again, I think a true up-and-comer, a rising star in the medium, for him to just give me a cover, which I think was originally $900, but I could be wrong, was one of the coolest moments of my life. So shout out to Kreese Lee. If you're not familiar with his work, go follow him. He's an incredible dude. I was already a fan before, but he earned himself a lifelong fan there in that moment. So
that's going to pay back in dividends. Considering it's you we're talking about.
Right. And he was so cool. He's such a good guy. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say, you saying that having a published cover is like the tippy top of original, owning like original artwork. It got me thinking of like, what are some covers that I would maybe shell out for to own an
Mm.
original published work. And the two that immediately came to mind, I think if I do more thinking, more will pop up. But the two that immediately came to mind, one is Uncanny X-Men 251, which we
Mm.
got to see homage in the Wolverine, Deadpool and Wolverine movie.
Yep.
Wolverine on the cross with the skulls. I think that is a piece that would probably be super trippy to see in
Mhm.
black and white, original Mark Silvestri,
Yeah.
pencils. I forget who the inker was, but I think to see that one would probably be epic. And then the other one that came to mind, and I think more so because this could also maybe stand alone. It's not, I guess I want to cover that can stand as, like obviously a comic book cover, but also like just a nice piece of art to hang in the house. And I think anything by Charles Vess, like any of his Spider-Man stuff, like
Mhm.
his Web of Spider-Man 1 cover or the Spirits of the Earth trade, something like an original art piece that is like from a painter. And I think
Yeah.
Charles Vess is a great example of like a painted style that could work as both like a, hey, I collect comic books and I love this cover for it's impact the comics, but also like, hey, this is also a really good painted piece.
Mhm. Well, just a couple days ago, New Mutants '98, first appearance of Deadpool and Domino.
Oh
Of course,
yeah,
Rob
that's
Liefeld cover
right.
sold for
7.5.
$7.5
Wait, now
million
time
dollars.
out. Now did it sell or was that the asking price for it?
That's actually a good question. I don't know if it was actually sold, but I
Oh,
know it
let's
was
see.
listed at 7.5. Oh, it says I guess it was just listed at 7.5, but I would be really surprised with the hype around Deadpool and Wolverine, which is going to cross $1 billion in like a couple days.
Yeah.
I'm sure probably at the time of this release, it will already have reached $1 billion. I would not be surprised if someone forks over 7.5. And to think that at any point in Rob Liefeld's life, because if you knew anything about Rob Liefeld in the '90s, not only was he being paid well, but he was partying hard.
Oh yeah.
To think that he sold this at any point in his life seems crazy to me. I know he didn't sell it for anywhere near 7.5,
Oh hell no. And
but
I'm going to be curious the tweets that come out of this because one thing about Rob, he knows about Rob very well. So any
yes.
news involving his name, I feel like he just got like a Google search alert.
Oh yeah,
So
he's got that alert anytime
oh yeah.
someone Googles his name. And the last thing that I picked up at San Diego, this is another original piece. It was the last day, total impulse buy, but I'm so happy I did it. Was a Ron Lim Silver Surfer head bust,
Ooh.
which for people to know, Ron Lim, famous Silver Surfer artist. He was pretty much ruled the '80s, both with Ron Mars and Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin. Yeah, and when I have a Silver Surfer tattoo by Mobius from his and Stan Lee's Parable, and there was a moment where I thought about getting Ron Lim. So his work means a ton to me in terms of just as a creator, but also in terms of my love of Silver Surfer. So it was really cool to get an original from him as well. So there you go. There's 3 altogether.
Those are some fire pickups. I've got 2 more to share with you. So this next one, talking about like books that just mean maybe something to me. I don't know how much this one's going for, but this is a TMNT versus Street Fighter #1 variant cover that
Nice.
I won in a raffle, or as Gotham City Limit likes to call it, a waffle. Uh, they call it. I told Ben the only thing that's missing is these winners. We should also get like some mini Eggos or a waffle for real.
That's
But
right.
they do these weekly raffles where you can buy as many raffle tickets as you want. They cost $1, and they always have like a cool assortment of prizes. It'll be like one of 100 variant cover, or a CGC book, or I think there was also like an action figure in this one, but and I don't enter them all the time, but I saw that he had this book as a prize, and I was like, yo, I'm a sucker for Street Fighter and especially TMNT. So this cover is by Jeffrey Edwards and Jason Keith. It looks like it is a one-stop-comic-shop.com variant,
Nice.
which I had not seen before, and it's also signed. I don't know who it's signed by. It might be signed by Jeffrey Edwards, but I went ahead and spent $20 on some raffle tickets, and I don't ever win, but they were like, yo, B, you got second place, buddy. So I had to wait for the first place guy to pick something, and then I got to pick. So
What did first place pick?
I don't recall what he picked, but I was hoping he didn't pick this or this like Leonardo action figure. It was one of the Universal Monster variants. So it's Leonardo as like the Hunchback. So
Oh,
if he
cool.
would have picked this, I would have got that, or vice versa. So
Nice.
I got that. And then last but not least, my interesting pickup of the week. I actually picked this up on Saturday. Big shout outs to Jonathan at Gotham City Limit. He was able to order me the Oh god, this thing is huge.
Oh,
It's
nice. David Mazzucchelli.
yeah, the Batman Year One Artist Edition from IDW. Look at the back.
It's incredible. This is one of the best
crazy.
artist editions that's ever come out. And I actually have mine on pre-order. I'm wondering when I'm going to get mine now.
So
Thank you for reminding me.
I missed that. I guess I missed that on the IDW pre-order.
Mm-hmm.
I when I found out they had did the pre-order early, it was already sold out online. But Jonathan was able to order it through Diamond, so for a very pretty penny. Good God, these books. I mean, granted, you saw the size of the book. I think the book is. I'm not going to try to pretend like I know the dimensions off the top of
It's
my
a
head. I think
coffee table size, right? Like
I think it's probably like 11 by 17, if not a little bigger. It's the full pages. You know, it's not shrunk down to 8.5 by 11 or whatever the size of a regular comic is. So I'm getting, you know, the OG original art. So I guess in a way, this is also me dipping my toe. I feel like, you know, this book was, I think it cost me like $100 after my discount. But you know, it's like the full page original art from David Mazzucchelli. You might as well call it like, you know, a portfolio of the original art, you know, just replica pages. But dude, these are so good. I own this one now, which I'm excited to actually open and flip through and read through, because Batman Year One is definitely like a top 3 favorite Batman story for me, if not top 2.
Yeah.
So I own this one, and I own another David Mazzucchelli artist edition in the Daredevil Born Again. So
nice.
Both of them huge, colossal books.
I have a couple myself. I have the Jim Lee X-Men one. I have the Jack Kirby Mr. Miracle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have the.
Are those the same size? Like the overweight, oversized?
Same size as yours. I can show you after the recording.
Crazy.
I have the. So they did a Alex Ross Marvels one where it's the story Marvels, but it's just in that size. And then same thing.
Come on.
It's Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's Here Comes Galactus. It's issue 50 or 48 through 52 in that giant size. So
that is these books are, IDW is absolutely does amazing work. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the guy that runs that department, and I wish I knew his name, I think he left IDW to start his own company to do like more of these like high prestigious, you know, books. So I'm here for it. So if you can order one of these, I have a feeling this is a book that might just like go up in value. I know my Daredevil Born Again artist edition, I had bought it right before Daredevil season 1 came out on Netflix, and I did watch the price of that go up. But at the same time, I think the popularity of the show and the artist editions, you know, they started to release like a smaller sized artist edition. I think they call those like their artisan. Artisan. Thank you.
Yeah.
So those are a little more affordable and a little more, I guess, a lot more approachable to be able to read in store.
Yeah, I actually have the. I have the Bill Sienkiewicz Mutants, Moon Knights, and Assassins one of that. So I think they're really cool. They're really easy to read.
What comes in that one?
This right here would be his New Mutants, Moon Knight, Daredevil, Love and War, and Elektra Assassin.
You get all of that in that book?
Yeah, it's all the pencils for all of those.
Oh,
those
shit.
series.
I might actually have to get that.
Yeah, it's super
Hell
cool.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, it's just a condensed version of those giant artist editions, which I'll say, sort of the build off what you're saying there. You, anyone listening right now, you'll never feel bad about buying one of those artist editions. You will just have the most trouble trying to store it somewhere. That's the only thing, is that there's no good place to put it. It doesn't go on a bookcase. They're heavy as fuck. Like they're huge, but they're cool showcases for people.
You know, in comics and just like it's collecting, it's like the cooler the thing is, it's probably very difficult. You know, it's difficult to read. It's difficult to store. Like I think about omnibuses. Pardon me. They're great in theory, but I have never cracked open an omnibus to just thoroughly enjoy.
So hard to read.
Yeah, I think the only time I've ever cracked open one of my omnibuses is to, I think, reference a page. Like I didn't feel like looking for it on Marvel Unlimited, and I might have been like Age of Apocalypse. I was like, what happened in that one part? And I was able to use it as a reference. Yeah. But I needed a 2-man lift to get it out of my shelf. I had to wear a back brace. Yeah. So the cooler, that's my thing. The cooler the concept is in comics, the more of a hassle it'll probably be.
Yeah. Yep.
And you know, Chris, I think I want to go ahead and pivot. Speaking about like cool pickups and significant purchases.
Well, real quick, do you mind if I just quickly mention my other 2 that I had here? I had 2 quick pickups.
Yeah, please.
So I mentioned you actually kind of teased this earlier. I bought a 2.5 Fantastic Four number 57, which people, if you want to look that up, that's a famous Silver Surfer Doctor Doom cover. It's got Doctor Doom giant on the cover there. It's a Jack Kirby cover, of course. And then I also bought Uncanny X-Men number 145. This was written by Chris Claremont and cover and interiors by Dave Cockrum. This, of course, is the famous, it's Doctor Doom holding like a goblin, I guess, and then he's got Storm. He got Storm in his passed out in his other arm. So
yeah, very questionable cover in today's lenses. You know, it's like, wait a minute.
That's right. Yeah. So those are the two I bought.
Actually, the more I look at this cover, it's a pretty crazy ass cover.
His right hand is right above her chest. So
yeah, it's like, what's
Victor,
in that drink?
We need to chill out a little bit there.
Yeah. Did you roofie the entire X-Men?
He's like, I'm going to take Storm with me. Aurora, come with me. Yeah. But that's a 9.0 for all the CGC heads out there.
Well, do you mind? Is it okay if I ask how much did you pay for that Fantastic Four one? Because you said it's what, a 4.5 or something?
The Fantastic Four, that one was 75. Yeah, really cheap. $75 for that one on eBay. That's with shipping too, by the way. It was like $57 total.
Which you gave me a you know, maybe a new perspective on buying like some really low grade CGC books to own like a piece of history. I mean, I guess if I really wanted to read it, I could open the CGC slab. There's enough YouTube videos out there showing how to do that. But
it's easy. It's really scary. I'll say that, to open up a CGC book. But
have you ever opened one up?
Oh yeah, I've cracked a couple actually.
Really? Why? What was the last one you did?
Let's see. The last one I had. So I had a Jessica Jones #1 signed by David Mack. It was a 9.6. Sorry, no. I apologize. It was signed by Kristen Ritter. I bought it at a 9.6.
Oh wow!
Signed by Kristen Ritter.
Kristen Ritter, nice.
Yeah, and then I cracked it. Got it signed by David Mack, regraded it, had it pressed, and now it's a 9.8. So it's signed by David Mack and Kristen Ritter, which is really cool.
Did you like get to meet Kristen Ritter?
No. I bought it signed by Kristen Ritter, and then that would have been cool to meet her. But
yeah, that'd be great.
And then if I ever get to meet Brian Michael Bendis in person, I'll have him sign it as well because he's the co-creator.
Yeah. All right. So, I guess I never thought about buying a really low grade one, just to have like a couple of like first appearances. Like it'd be great to have I don't know, see if I can find like the first appearance of Hellboy. I've always wanted to have a first appearance of Hellboy.
I have the New Men in a low grade. I bought it for like $40. You can buy an ungraded new first Hellboy, because the thing about Hellboy's first appearance, to speak specifically on that, is that it's been argued widely on what there's like 3 issues of what the first Hellboy could be.
It's like New Men was his first appearance in full color, and then I know there was another issue before that where it's Hellboy but it's in black and white.
Yeah, it's a Hellboy black and white because he's like shown in the back, and then there's a San Diego Comic-Con like preview, some kind of preview comic that came out that also refers to him as well. So.
And then there's the Italian magazine that has like his early prototype, which, you know, and I think that scratches one of my itches of like, if I don't want just the first appearance, I want some complicated bullshit.
I'm of two minds with that, because there are some first appearances that are so annoying because they're like in a preview. Like for instance, like Miles Morales first showed up in a preview. There's one. Like Ms. Marvel's first appearance is widely debated as well, because she shows up in a couple different things. Here's a really cool one, and I'll end it on this, is that one of my favorite single issues that I've owned at one point, but I unfortunately sold, was the first appearance of Ms. Marvel in her costume. So Kamala Khan in her costume is Captain Marvel #21, second printing, which was it was barely printed. I mean, there's less than 100 in the census for CGC.
Wait, it's a second printing. She's on the cover with her costume.
Yeah. So if everyone knows, Kamala Khan, when she first showed up in the comic in Captain Marvel, I think it was Avenging Spider-Man was technically her first appearance. Or no, sorry, that was the first appearance of Captain Marvel in her new suit. First Ms. Marvel is in a Captain Marvel comic. It's like issue 20 or 21. She just basically shows up in a background. She like flexes, and her embiggen like makes her bicep huge. You don't see her in her actual costume until Ms. Marvel #1 by G. Willow Wilson. But if you buy that Captain Marvel, her first appearance in that Captain Marvel comic, the second printing, it is her in her suit for the first time with like a giant fist, and she has the scarf and like her classic Ms. Marvel suit, which they're very hard to find. And I had it at a 9.2, and I paid like $400 for it. So if you get a 9.8, I think it's worth $1,000 easy.
Damn.
Yeah.
Interesting, man. Like I said, I just learning about certain books that go for a lot. It's always fun to hear like people debate for, I I guess the rules in comic book, the comic collector world, you don't talk about religion, politics, or first issues in some cases, unless you want to
Don't get me
start
started
a
on the
debate.
Wolverine. On Wolverine, Wolverine is like, was it one? Is it what is it?
181 or
181 or
180.
180? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's 180. It really is. But we all collect 81, 181 like it's the first appearance.
for sure. All right, I guess moving on to our next topic, which I think is a great segue, and maybe this is where we'll wrap it up. I know that I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about San Diego Comic Con, and maybe we'll record like a couple minutes for Patreon. But
Sure.
I think our last segment for this particular episode on the topic of cool pickups and comic specific. Let's get into Ben's list. Like I said, I reached out to Ben Kingsbury, the owner of Gotham City Limit, the best comic shop here in Jacksonville, Florida, and all of Florida at that. I reached out to Ben and asked him to provide me 3 picks for new comics. So 3 new comic picks that he feels everyone should be on board for, whether you're a new fan looking for a good entry point or maybe a loyal Wednesday warrior looking for something new. So these have a final order cutoff of the following Monday, which would be the 19th, I believe. These books come out September 18th, so you got to get your order in by next Monday, August 19th. So with that being said, he sent in 3 voicemails because Ben is a salesman. He can't just send in a list. He's got to tell you why he picked it. So it just means more fun content for you guys to listen to. So here we go. He did give me a preface that these 3 picks for this month are all Marvel. He said there wasn't a lot of a diversity to choose from, but I think he wanted to go for a Marvel theme. So if you're a Marvel head, this is right up your alley. So here is his first pick. Here we go. Ben Kingsbury, what you got for us?
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Short Box listener. However you're listening and wherever you're listening from, I'm Ben K, representing Gotham City Limit, Jacksonville, Florida. Time to take final order cutoff for brand new comics to the limit. Here's my 3 you shouldn't miss this week. First up, Marvel Comics presents Spirit of Vengeance #1. And this is a good one if you're a Ghost Rider fan, probably a must read. We're talking about a story that features some of the most iconic characters who have ever carried the Spirit of Vengeance mantle. Johnny Blaze, Danny Ketch, Robbie Reyes, even more recently the Hood or Kashala. The premise is intense. The Spirit of Vengeance is back for one explosive ride through the darkest corners of the Marvel Universe, and there's a twist. This tale has a particularly strong connection to not one, but 2 Ghost Riders, making it a story that's been years in the making. Don't miss out. Marvel Comics Spirit of Vengeance #1. Also, there's a Kashala variant cover that is going to fly off the shelves. You're welcome.
There we go. Look at Ben giving us the insider tips early.
I think he meant Declan Shalvey, by the way. I just want to correct that in case anyone's curious. Declan Shalvey is the cover that he's talking about.
Is he? No. Well, I think Declan Shelby is the main cover, but there is a Derek Chu Kashala variant.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Maybe that's what it was. I apologize, Ben. My bad for trying to correct you there. I thought you meant Declan Shalvey. My bad.
But I've been doing this for years, buddy.
How dare I? Why would I try to go in there and correct him? I will say that he mentioned that it involves 2 Ghost Riders. I'm just looking at the synopsis here. I don't know what the hell's going on in Ghost Rider right now, but I was
just about to say the same thing. I have no idea.
But
what
it looks
the fuck
like
is going on?
All of the Ghost Riders showing up. You got Johnny Blaze, Robbie Reyes, Danny Ketch, Parker Robbins, Kushala, I think is, and then like all of them, all the most recent ones. So that's interesting.
One thing I've noticed about these Ben's picks this week's, that all of the creative team are writers and artists I am not familiar with, and I wonder if it's their kind of breakthrough moment or they're new on the scene. This particular title, Spirits of Vengeance #1, is written by Sabir Perzada and artist Sean Damian Hill. I'm not familiar with either one of them. What about you, Chris?
I'm not familiar with either, but also Sabir is the writer of 2 of these books. We'll talk about the other one here in a moment. But yeah, I'm not familiar with his work. That's interesting.
Yeah, so I wonder if we are seeing a fresh crop of creative talent.
What? I'm so sorry. I was just looking it up. Speaking of Ms. Marvel, So he was actually the writer on Ms. Marvel Mutant Menace. He was the co-writer along with Ms. Marvel herself, Ayman Vellani. So that's where he came from.
Okay, that's cool. All right, so
Yeah.
he's no stranger to writing like big flagship characters. Okay, so once again, that was Spirits of Vengeance #1 that comes out September 18th. If you want to make sure that you don't miss out on that, final order cutoff for that is August 19th. All right, moving on to his second pick. What else he's got for us? Let's see what else he got.
Next up, Marvel Comics presents Star Wars Darth Vader #50. That's right, the highly anticipated conclusion of the longest running Darth Vader comic series ever ends here with issue #50. Writer Greg Pak promises to bring everything full circle as the Dark Lord of the Sith unleashes his true power in a battle that fans have been eagerly waiting for. But what battle have fans been eagerly waiting for, Ben? Well, let me tell you. Probably the only person in the galaxy who can match Vader's strength and ruthlessness. None other than Emperor Palpatine himself. As the schism Imperial erupts, Vader harnesses the unfathomable power he's accumulated throughout the series, setting the stage for a showdown that promises to shake the very foundations of the Empire. But that's not all. This issue also ties up loose ends and provides shocking twists for some of the most beloved and intriguing characters in the Star Wars universe. We're talking about Luke, Leia, Sabi, Ochi, Zed, Sly Moore, and the other key members of the Schism Imperial. The stakes have never been higher, and there's not a better character in comics than Star Wars Darth Vader. #50. Don't miss out.
I love how Ben is able to, obviously he's reading some of the solicitation, but he reads it exactly as how like the solicitation is meant to be like read, like very like dramatic, very like, and this episode of Darth Vader #50, you know,
previews. If you're listening right now, get our guy
right.
Ben.
I mean, yeah, come on, man. Like, and then he adds his own little flair in it. I will say I am absolutely impressed and floored by how long Darth Vader has been. I guess I shouldn't be that impressed because it's Darth Vader. He's like the coolest villain in the world. I guess I just didn't expect that Star Wars comics would still be going on this long. As someone who was reading them when they first got to Marvel, and I was reading that OG Charles Soule Darth Vader run, which was exceptional, but I had to hop off when they like relaunched it and then kept relaunching it. Oh, that's a nice hardcover you got there.
I have the Charles Soule Giuseppe Camicoli the omnibus.
That's right. He was doing the interiors, and he absolutely killed it. So
I love that run.
I actually might check this out, this big 50th issue celebration, because Greg Pak is also involved. I'm not familiar with the artist, Raphael. I think that's Linko or Linko.
Linko, yeah.
So once again, some new faces over there at Marvel.
Yeah, and both of these last two, Spirit of Vengeance #1 and Darth Vader #50, both have a Derek Chew 1:100 ratio variant. So that's pretty cool.
Which one is that one? That one is okay. So this is wow.
Derek Chew killing it in the cover game right now. This guy,
yes, he is.
When you're being put on 1:100 ratios, that means you're in high demand. Marvel would not put that cover as the highest ratio if your books were not selling.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to know actually why I know Derek Chew's name is because he's always in the Gotham City Limit waffles. It's guaranteed one of his variant covers are going to be a prize in the Gotham waffles.
Yeah.
All right, so that was Darth Vader, Star Wars Darth Vader #50. That also comes out September 18th. Once again, final order cutoff for that would be August 19th. So get that on your list if you want it. And last but not least, Ben's final order pick of the week is a strong contender, a strong way to wrap up this trio. Here we go.
And last but not least, Marvel Comics presents Venom War, Lethal Protectors #1 of a 3-part series. Well, the main story, Venom War, just kicked off, but I'm looking forward to this 3-part series. Silver Sable is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains ever. The Lethal Protector series from the 90s, where we had Venom without his big lizardy tongue, Silver Sable, and Spider-Man are some of my favorites. And this 3-part series has the return of Silver Sable, assembling a high lethal mercenary squad known as the Symbiote Squad. But who makes up the Symbiote Squad? I'm glad you asked. How about the Life Foundation symbiotes? Scream, Riot, Agony, Lasher, and Phage. This is going to be a no-holds-bar battle to the death for a number of these symbiotes. So if you're a fan of Venom, Silver Sable, or any of the symbiotes I listed out, this 3-part series is for you. Venomore, Lethal Protectors #1. Let's take the symbiotes to the limit. Well, another week is come and gone, and I'm still Ben K, representing Gotham City Limit down here in Jacksonville, Florida. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility, and always take it to the limit.
Love
Peace.
that. Love that. Great way to wrap it up. I have a special place for the original Venom Lethal Protector. I will never, from like the 90s with the Mark Bagley interior. I think it was J.M. DeMott.
Was it? Yeah, Maximum Carnage. Is that the storyline that these guys all showed up in?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think so. But I'm talking about the original Venom Lethal Protector.
Oh, sure.
With the badass red foil cover.
Yeah.
Iconic cover at that. I will never forget pulling that from a long box, a dollar long box at that, as a very young kid, and being blown away by the red foil. You know, it's like, oh, look how bloody it's gonna be. Love that story.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get any heat for this, but Venom is one of those characters that I have often had. I've been at odds with because I
feel like it's saturated. We've been oversaturated with Venom.
The Marvel so wants us to love Venom, and I get it. As a '90s kid, it's hard not to love him in some aspects. He's got one of the coolest designs. He is. But I feel like besides the Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman run, a lot of the Venom lore is sort of steeped in nothingness. Like, and I could be wrong. I'm not like an end all be all know it all about Venom, but like I feel like he's most interesting in that run with Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman. But real quick on this Lethal Protectors cover here, shout out to my boy Kreese Lee. We were just talking about him a moment ago. He's the cover artist on this.
That's cool.
There you go, and it's a killer cover too.
Good way to bring it back. And once again, all right, so this is being written by Sabir Pirzada and an artist that I'm not familiar with, Luca Mariska. So some new faces.
Some She-Hulk fill-ins. Mershira did, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this Venom War Lethal Protectors #1 also comes out September 18th. So as you can see, September 18th is going to be a big new comic book Wednesday. So if you want to get this on your pull list in time, final order cutoff once again August 19th. So those 3 comics once again are Spirit of Vengeance #1, Star Wars Darth Vader #50, and Venom Lethal Protector #1. I'll have links to all of these so you can preview the pages, and I'm sorry, not the pages, but the covers, and see the things that me and Chris are talking about in the show notes.
Which of those 3 are you most excited? Are you going to pick up any of those? Has Ben convinced you to go out to Gotham City when these come out and pick up one of these?
Well, I will definitely probably be at Gotham City Limit on that Wednesday because I rarely miss a Wednesday. But all right, realistically, if I'm being 100% honest, I will probably pick up the Darth Vader.
Yep.
Because now
64 pages.
You gotta love you a good little milestone issue to jump in on. I do want to see what's going on with Darth Vader, and I think it's probably the strongest contender out of these 3 that doesn't rely on, like Venom Lethal Protectors. I think it's relying on like an older story and that kind of nostalgia.
It's a tie-in.
Yeah, and much. Oh, it's a tie. Oh, well, even more reason not to. And then Spirit of Vengeance, I think you said it best. I have no idea what's going on with Ghost Rider, so I'm gonna go with Star Wars Darth Vader. What about you, Chris?
So there are 2 comics that I feel like are just in a constant flux of reboots, and it's Ghost Rider and Shang-Chi. Those 2 books I feel like are rebooted every 6 months for some reason, and usually it's like the same creative team for some reason too. Like I know Gene Yun Lang was on Shang-Chi for a long time, maybe he still is, but he's done like 3 Shang-Chi #1s. And it's the same way with Ghost Rider. It feels like Ghost Rider, they just keep switching up who the Ghost Rider is. And I think they just recently they've done it again with the Hood taking over as the Ghost Rider. So spoilers for anybody who's not reading Ghost Rider. I am not, obviously, but that's just what I've heard through the nerd grapevines. And but all that to be said, I will say Spirit of Vengeance is one of the books that of the 3 would be the one that I would be the one to take off the shelf and probably pick up, just based on the fact that it has all of the Ghost Riders. Real quick, just kind of on that topic, you don't have to elaborate if you don't want, but which is your favorite Ghost Rider?
Johnny Blaze, easily, because Method Man is always, Method Man went by Johnny Blaze. That's his nickname. Yeah. I think it's the one I'm most familiar with as well. And Johnny Blaze is just such a cool ass name, Johnny Blaze.
Yeah. I have a soft spot for Robbie Reyes. I think even though he's the newest
man.
one,
Yeah,
that
no.
Trad Moore run that he had there in his
For sure.
creation for the all new, all different?
Design-wise,
Yeah.
design-wise, he's got such a slick design. Just
Yeah.
in your face. I feel like you also have to go ahead and just pick up Venom War Lethal Protectors #1, just off the strength that it's Kreese Lee, and
Kreese Lee.
you got to support. He gave
Yep.
you the that cover for free, so
That's my
I had
guy.
to pay it back in some way.
I wonder if he'll give me the cover for this Venom War Lethal Protection. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so I'll have links to those books in the show notes. Big shout outs to Ben for taking the time to submit the list, record the voice recordings. I mean, there's no better comic salesman than Ben. So big shout outs to Ben. And maybe I'll see you at Gotham City Limit on September 18th when all these books come out. Chris, I think that is where I want to wrap up this particular episode. If you want to stay on, we can talk about your San Diego Comic-Con trip, the highlights, the things you learned, the things you picked up. We can go into a little more detail there. Give the patrons, the #1 supporters, a little extra episode this week. But I want to say thank you for being a fantastic guest co-host. Thank you for thank you for what you do for the comic book podcast world, man. The dope ass content that you put out pushes me to put out dope content, and I hope you come back from break even more energized and recharged. Do you have any closing words? Anything you want to say to the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, thank you so much for having me on, like all the time. I obviously love coming on, or I wouldn't keep coming back. And I think we've got you. You've become quickly one of my best friends, not only in the podcasting world, but overall. And I think you and I, as I've said in this conversation, and just overall, that we are kindred spirits in this podcasting comic book world. And I think it always provides for a fun conversation. I always love coming on here. I'm sad that Greg couldn't be with us tonight, but I hope that in the next installment that I'm on here on the Short Box, we have the entire Comic Gent crew.
Oh, yeah, we need the trio.
We can nerd out once again.
We'll make it happen. All right, folks, I'm going to have links to Chris's podcast, the Oblivion Bar, in the show notes. You can check out the Brian K. Vaughan episode, which I highly recommend, especially if you're a Saga fan or, someone that needs a little more, Saga in your life.
He doesn't do interviews ever. I think the last interview
that's
he
why
did
you
was
ordered.
the last one that I've heard of from Brian was in 2021 with the aforementioned David Harper over on Off Panel.
That's right. And that one is a good one. So check that out. I have links to that in the show notes. Consider looking or pre-ordering one of these fine comic books that Ben has shared and recommended. And as far as Short Box, I might just take next week off. All right. Maybe I'll start my little recharge hiatus a little early. Like I've said in the Patreon preview episode, I'm going to do my best to have something on the main feed every week, but don't be surprised if that slows down. You might just get more Patreon previews. You might get more Short Box classics. But if you want to ensure that you get your steady stream of Short Box episodes into your IV, become a member of the Patreon. Patreon.com/theshortbox. Patreon.com/theshortbox. And one more time for good measure, Patreon.com/theshortbox. You'll get a bunch of bonus episodes. Me and Drew have been recording more regular and frequent episodes together. So if you like this kind of carefree episode I did with Chris and you need just a little more insanity and what the fuckness to this episode, check my episodes out with Drew. You also get early access, and I am, like I said, in the middle of sending all of the patrons a nice little care package. I'll be sending out a comic or two and some stickers and Short Box stuff. So
what was that URL? What was that URL again?
For the fourth time. Patreon.com/shortbox. I've also got it linked in the show notes. But even if you're not a patron, I still appreciate the support. It means a lot that you come here every week, press and play, and checking out what I got to say, my nerdy little hobby and fandom. Love you guys. Be well. Take care. Read a good comic book. My outro is coming in now to double down on all these things I've already said, but why not? Catch you guys around, all right? Peace.
Peace.